Hi, I'm Dr. Sharyl Truty. I'm a family practice physician located here at the beaches here in Jacksonville. I'm also trained in holistic medicine, and the name of my practice is Balanced Physician Care, where we do a lot of different holistic treatments as well as conventional medicine in an integrative medicine practice. Today, our Facebook Live topic is something that I think has garnered quite a lot of interest in the community, and that is CBD and CBD oil. I'm here today with my guest, Joey Jennings. He's an owner of Mother Holistic company who manufactures and distributes CBD oil. And we're here to kind of talk a little bit about CBD, what exactly it is, and what the health benefits are. So, getting into talking a little bit about it, I think people, it's helpful to go back to our, biology and our plant science and talk a little bit about what CBD oil is. So it's a mnemonic, right, for cannabidiol, and it is a product that's manufactured from cannabis sativa plant. But cannabis sativa, and I have a little diagram here, actually is, the name, biology name of both what we often call hemp as well as the same plant, marijuana. However, there are two different types of plants from what I understand. Right. The hemp plant is usually kind of a longer, skinnier stalk. And from what I understand agriculturally, you're kind of tend to be harvesting more of the stalks. And marijuana, is kind of a shorter, more flowery plant, and more of the oils tend to come from more of the flowers. Is right. That correct?
Yeah, both marijuana and the hemp plant fall under the cannabis plant, but they're both made up of different compounds.
Right.
So the marijuana plant is made up of a lot of THC, the compound that gets people stoned or high. Yeah. And the hemp plant is mostly made up of CBD, which is the compound that we produce biologically, and that is known for creating homeostasis with the endocannabinoid nervous system.
Yes. So, I think that's sort of the main take-home point is that the cannabis sativa plant has sort of a lot of different plant, let's call them nutrients for lack of a really good term. And one of them is cannabidiol or CBD. And then there's also another one called tetrahydrocannabidiol for those into scientific names, but we often call that THC. And so typically CBD oil primarily is just cannabidiol, and it really doesn't have much, if any, very trace amounts of the THC.
Correct, yeah. The hemp plant naturally has small traces of THC in it, so you can eat as much hemp as you want, and you're never going to get high or stoned from it.
Yeah, and people do. People eat hemp seeds. They have a lot of nutritional value to them. They're very high in a lot of the positive omega fatty acids that are also very important for the brain. Obviously, it's used in making clothes, lotions, a lot of different things like that.
Wide variety of products, yeah.
Yeah, and marijuana, obviously, there's two types of oils, though, that people will kind of confuse. People will talk about marijuana oil, and then people will talk about, CBD oil. So those are kind of different, in a sense, because marijuana oil is usually manufactured from that more higher THC component marijuana plant.
Right. And it's used mostly for chronic illness and chronic pain.
Yeah.
So typically you'll see cancer patients or patients that have HIV use it. So those are the cases where you see the marijuana plant mostly used for.
Yeah. And so when we're talking about CBD today, we're talking about CBD oil. We are pretty much talking about the oil that's manufactured from the hemp plant, and that primarily pretty much has CBD in it alone, and that's sort of what's different. about it. So, CBD is kind of works through, the brain. That's where we think a lot of its, activity in helping the body is it sort of works on, what researchers have termed the endocannabinoid system. It's because we, found these neurotransmitters in there, and we kind of have named them sort of, after that.
Right.
And it has very relaxing, effects on that system.
Yeah.
Correct?
The endocannabinoid system is the largest neurotransmitter system in the body.
Yeah.
And it's found in all animals. So anything with a backbone has an endocannabinoid system. So biologically speaking, we are all designed to consume hemp. We have the receptors that were designed to bind with CBD.
Right.
And we make up the system that makes up that neurotransmitter is the endocannabinoid system.
Yeah. And I think we're really just kind of at the precipice of really understanding that system. I think, medical science is really still trying to put a handle around the brain and sort of all the different neurochemicals that affect it. And sort of this has become sort of in the forefront as, we are trying to understand how can we make ourselves, feel better overall from an emotional state as well as a physical state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what the endocannabinoid system is responsible for, is to create homeostasis, which is another way of saying balance.
Yeah.
And so whenever you have homeostasis or balance, you typically, the definition of homeostasis is disease-free.
Yeah.
And when the body's balanced, and I'm sure you can say this too, it can work efficiently and fight off a lot of different imbalances, the highs and lows.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's ultimately we're looking for, not necessarily to have one mood over another, but just sort of have more a normal sort of range, of experiences.
Right.
In the medical science, according to the Natural Medicine Database, there is some good research out there with cannabinoid being used for specific states. It seems to have some antidepressant effects. I think they think that comes from some of its effect on the hippocampal system for those that are kind of understanding a little bit more about the brain, and maybe even some 5-HT1A work there again, helping sort of the mood, and a lot of again anti-anxiety effects. It seems maybe to work in generalized anxiety disorder. There's been some study of it in panic, PTSD. So there are some different mood states that it's been shown to be helpful for.
Yeah. Yeah. Any part of the body that's in balance on a cellular level, it will be affected by CBD, because CBD acts as a modulator and it balances out your cells on a neurological level.
Yeah.
So there's a lot. People are finding relief from many different symptoms.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know there's there's also been some work maybe at it providing help enhance sleep. The sedation, I still think we're trying to figure out, if it has some sedative qualities and to what amount, that may, actually be as well. But you kind of, that brings us to, one point about dosing, with CBD is that, as you and I have talked about, more is not necessarily always better, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's almost like you taking your daily vegetables.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't eat more than one or two bananas, or more than 2 bananas or 2 oranges in a day.
Right.
You've got enough vitamin C from one.
Right.
So that's the same idea that goes with CBD.
Right.
It's a nutrient. And it comes from a plant. We only need so much of it to create that balance throughout our body.
Right. Right. And there's sort of a U-shaped curve where, with too much, it can just begin to cause, other, types of side effects and unwanted sort of issues. So, starting low and going slow usually, seems to help people to find their right amount. And it can be different for everybody.
Right. Right. And that's what, like you said, starting out low, documenting it for at least a week to see whether or not you need to increase the dose.
Yeah.
A lot of times, most people won't.
Yeah.
The industry is saying anywhere from 8 to 10 milligrams per serving, so no more than around 15, 16 milligrams a day.
Yeah.
Is enough to create balance.
And that, that's interesting. And I know it's also been used, there is some feeling that it can help with pain too. Although the question really becomes, is there a certain type of pain that it might be better at? I think there is some feeling that it has some anti-inflammatory effects. Again, we talked about hemp itself, having, some really important fatty acids, as any healthy seed would, that can help to reduce inflammation. So I think from an inflammatory standpoint, this also can be, pretty powerful as well.
Right.
And then from a pain standpoint, I think, my understanding is that we're still trying to figure out if it kind of helps from a neuropathic, which means nerve pain standpoint, or is it, good for, more like a muscular or inflammatory, pain aspect. And maybe perhaps a little bit of both. I was also doing some reading that it might have some neuroprotective effects, so when we talk about neuroprotective effects, that means in, chronic neurodegenerative diseases, and that's things like Alzheimer's or Huntington's disease, that we're not exactly sure how that may work, if it's from the inflammation standpoint, or if it's from, another way that it may actually be somewhat nerve protective.
Yeah. You never know, for me and my experience and the experience from most of my customers, once they start taking CBD, typically they'll start taking it for a certain health need.
Yeah.
But then once a week into it, maybe even less, you'll find out that they're finding relief from other areas too.
Right.
Because they're just in balance in many different reasons. For cases, I don't know the exact reason for it. There's many things that happen in this world today that could create an imbalance.
Yeah.
And so CBD is just something that helps with a lot of overall problems that we are having.
Yeah. And I think that, the literature is still, kind of helping us to figure out, what dosing may be. So, I think if you have a specific medical condition, that you're looking to treat, with the CBD oil, it might be worth seeing an integrative physician to kind of figure out what that dosing may be. But like you said, if you're just kind of using it for just general overall health, or maybe a little bit of stress or something like that. I know you talked about a lot of the dosing kind of starting at maybe about 8 milligrams or so a day.
Yeah, it's worked perfect for me. I went both routes. I went with a low dose, and then I increased it. And when I increased it, like you said, I started to see other side effects.
Yeah.
So it's just like if you were to take too much of anything else. Even like an example with oranges.
Right.
Eat too many oranges, there's a chance you're going to have an issue there.
Yeah. Eat too much of anything.
Right.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about your story. How you kind of got involved in this.
Yeah, I had a snowboarding accident many years ago, and I damaged my spine and created nerve damage in my C7, and it's affected my entire body. And I went to many different specialists. I have a long history of going to many different specialists and trying to find relief, and I just couldn't find it. So I took time off of work, and at the time I was a financial advisor, and I took time off of work there to just travel and see, just kind of take a break from everything. And while I was on break, I discovered CBD, and I started using it, and I was amazed at the relief that I found.
Yeah.
I felt passionately for it, and so I resigned and started my company.
Yeah, I know. I know a lot of some of the side effects that people can get a little bit with this, if you do go too high, is sometimes a lightheadedness, sometimes like you said, dry mouth. Those are typically some of the signs that you may need to kind of go with a lower amount.
Yeah, I experienced dry mouth and constipation. Those are the only two things that I've seen. And those are the two things that I've seen in most of the customers that I've sold to.
Yeah.
And so we just back it down the dosage.
Yeah. And I will say from a medical standpoint, there's some animal studies, now not a lot of human studies. There might be some interaction with some of the liver enzymes, which is important if you're taking other medications. It could kind of make some of the other medications, how it would work in the liver, those other medications be a little bit stronger. However, the natural medicine database isn't really strong on that evidence. Again, a lot of that seems to be from animal models. Another point that I know there's a point of confusion out there. There recently was an FDA approval of a drug called Epidiolex, and that seems to be it's a purified CBD medical grade oil. However, in the research that I came across, and I looked at the FDA press release that came out in I think it was June or July of this year, it seems like that has been purified from marijuana. So that kind of separates it a little bit in the sense of that product hasn't come from hemp. And so it's really only gotten a very narrow approval, and that's for seizure disorders. But I mean, it kind of does speak to the fact, as we're talking about, that this oil is working on the nervous system and showing improvement. And I know, obviously something that's pharmaceutical grade, can be manufactured in much stronger doses, and also, typically tends to be, purified. So there are, a lot of different things that come into that. But, there's some, just for people's interest, I know a lot of people, are kind of seeing what the FDA statements are sort of around cannabidiol in general,
There's a lot of science and research behind cannabidiol, and it's all proven to be really positive, helpful research. I haven't, in my research, I haven't noticed any negative reports about CBD. So like we were mentioning earlier, we have the largest neurotransmitter system in the body. It's called the endocannabinoid system, and literally that system is involved with every other internal system in our body. Our nervous system, our immune system, our endocrine system. So there are literally CBD receptors everywhere through our entire body. So with that said, I like the fact that a natural, taking the nutrient from the natural plant, rather than from a synthetic or a lab produced supplement. They have came out with those imitation synthetic weeds, they call them, before, and they've had horrible side effects. So I like the natural path. When it comes to CBD.
And I think that it does speak to, like you said, though, when we're looking at supplements, and this goes with any supplements, is quality, and purity. The Natural Medicine Database they said that they did one laboratory assessment of 84 commercially available products and identified that only 26 products were labeled accurately and correctly as far as the amount and the strength that they had, and that 21% of the products had THC in them but didn't label that. So I think it speaks to really wanting to be sure that what you're purchasing is a good quality product. And I know that's something that's been very important to you and what you do here. So tell me a little bit about your products here, and what you guys do to ensure that quality of your.
So our farms are located in Oregon, Colorado, and Kentucky, and all of our products have been tested by a third party for purity and potency. And you're right, I've seen many products in certain stores that I won't even mention, but I've seen many products that have incorrect information on the labeling. And they're misinforming the public. And for me, if they're if they have incorrect information on the label, then I question whether or not the creatine potency is going to be
Right.
authentic as well.
Yeah. And I see that with other supplements too, in, the world of, a lot of the herbal medicine, for something like, let's say, valerian root, I'll see, you'll see a combination and they'll list every ingredient, but they won't list the strength
Right.
or, any other information. And so when people come in with the products, I'm like, well, I can't speak to them, but I surely am not going to, be very, endorsing of them, because I can't really tell you what the dosing is. And I know with your products, you guys have definitely the dosing, sort of on the bottle.
Yeah, the lab reports as well.
Yeah.
One of the funny things is we were talking about hemp being from the sativa plant.
Yeah.
I was speaking with a customer of mine, and she was telling me that she had previously tried some other CBD oil, and I asked her to send me a picture of her oil so I can do on all of my customers, just so I can find out what they had been taking.
Yeah.
And on the label it said that her hemp CBD came from the indica plant,
Yeah.
which is completely inaccurate.
Yeah.
CBD, the hemp plant only produces is a sativa plant.
Right.
It's not an indica plant.
Right.
That's just one
Right.
example of.
Right. And that's, again, like you said, that's there's cannabis indica, right? And then there's cannabis sativa, and we're talking about the hemp plant that's cannabis sativa.
Yeah, there are thousands of different strands of the cannabis plant, and hemp is completely made up differently than the marijuana plant.
Yeah.
So if anybody questions the amount, the whether or not they're going to get high or stoned from the hemp plant,
right?
Like they said, you can buy hemp products from pretty much any store out there right now.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the CBD, but
right.
Hemp is one of those plants that are non-threatening. You don't have to worry about them getting you high or stoned.
Yeah.
Unless you're, like I said, unless you're buying it from your CBD from a source that is not credible, you're not getting accurate results from it. So.
Right. And your product here is it's sort of a dropper full. So typically, people will look at the dosing and sort of take a small, sort of almost depending upon the strength, because you sell a couple different strengths.
Right.
A small quarter dropper full or so orally on a daily basis. That's sort of how you take this. Right.
Yeah, and you can take it orally, and most people will take it and drop it under the tongue so that it can be absorbed into the bloodstream. You want to usually hold it there for as long as you can, 30 seconds.
Okay.
But then other people mix it in the drink.
Yeah.
I like to do both. I'll take a drink in the morning, and then I'll take a drop before I go to bed.
Yeah.
So you can do it many different ways.
Yeah.
The tincture, you can actually put it in cold foods.
Yeah.
Some warm foods too. Just make sure that if you're putting it into warm foods, that you keep the temperature below 175 degrees.
Yeah. And then, then there's topical applications. I know you have the topical one over here. So, I've, in the sports medicine practice that I've used, I've been pretty impressed. One of the herbals that I often like topically to recommend is arnica. It's great because it doesn't have a lot of smell to it. Some of the other muscle creams can have a lot of smell, but there's a lot of shows that homeopathic product can really reduce inflammation. There's some great evidence in the German E Commission, on arnica and reducing musculoskeletal inflammation. But I've also, been impressed with the topical CBD. I think from a muscle relaxation standpoint, how topically that can be very helpful. And I know your product here kind of has a little bit of both arnica and cannabidiol in it. Yeah. And it can be kind of used and applied to almost any, anywhere on the body.
Gel freeze roller, so you can just roll it anywhere you want,
Yeah.
and it's not going to leave any residue on you.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, I mean, I think that when people are, looking sort of into CBD, I think, bottom line is first, having a little understanding of what it is, that it is the cannabis sativa plant, and that, like you said, primarily what we're seeing is hemp derived. That's different from marijuana. It's different from the marijuana products that are out there, and it's different from the what's sort of being prescribed from let's say an FDA sort of standpoint and categorized. Primarily that's because THC component of that is what is a concerning component that can make people high.
Yeah, and it also throws too much THC will throw your entire endocannabinoid system out of whack. So if you're trying to create balance and you're getting too much THC, then you're doing the exact opposite of what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and then doing the research to make sure that I know it may not be as easily available as a lot of other herbal products, but I think that that's changing as it's coming more prevalent out there, in the market with the hemp industry.
Yeah, just yesterday when I left your office, I got a call from one of the Shark Tank producers.
Really?
Who asked me to be a part of their media campaign. Yeah. Because it is a growing industry. Yeah. And there's a massive movement behind CBD, the natural supplement, a nutrient, like I said, that we produce. Women produce it in their breast milk for their baby, for their children. Yeah. So I'm a huge hemp advocate, and I like what's going on there. Yeah. And we're here at Balanced Physician Care are going to be selling your product, and again, because you have that certificate of authenticity, because you guys have really focused on the quality and purity standards, it's something that I feel here that is something that we can offer our patients and kind of be confident that we're giving them a product that they're going to try that we really understand. So thank you very much for joining us here today. This is Joey Jennings. Tell us a little bit about your website and your company again. Sure. So the company name is Mother Holistic, and the website is www.motherholistic.com. And you'll find a lot of helpful information on that website. I've got a buyer's guide page, and I've got a CBD FAQ page, frequently asked questions. Yeah. There's helpful information there. Yeah.
So it's a great place to go to. I know also you're local, which is, fantastic too, as a resource as well. So thank you very much for coming in today.
You're very welcome.
Again, my name is Dr. Sharyl Truty. I'm owner of Balanced Physician Care, located here at the Beaches. If you're enjoyed our Facebook Live presentation today, or want anybody that to sort of listen to it, it will be available on our website later today for viewing again. Again, that's balancedphysiciancare.com. And we'll be having some upcoming Facebook Live presentations. Backed by popular demand in the next couple of weeks, we'll be going back to Leaf and Bean. If you haven't gone there, I highly recommend. It's located at Beach in San Pablo. It's kind of a food restaurant that very much is holistic, and have a lot of great, fantastic teas. So we'll be talking a little bit about green tea. And then with our upcoming fall time, I know a lot of people are thinking about insurance and insurance plans and what are you going to do for coverage. We're going to have some upcoming webinars on one of the things that we do uniquely here, and that's our membership-based practice and how that might be a healthcare solution for you. If paying a lot out of pocket is for your health insurance is sort of getting frustrated, I encourage you to tune into our webinars and hear a little bit more about how this might be an alternative option. Or if you're frustrated with the 10 minutes in and out, how while this is not a concierge practice, it's a membership-based practice, how that might fit in for you. Again, we do a lot of holistic medicine, holistic consults here as well. So thank you very much for your time today. Please check out our website for our upcoming Facebook Live talks. And always, we welcome your feedback. Our email is membership@balancedphysiciancare.com. Thank you very much and have a great day.